Bonjour. Soyez les bienvenus.
Good afternoon. Welcome to this exclusive interview by France 24 with Mr. Jean-Yves Le Drian, Minister for Europe and the Foreign Affairs of France. Mr. Minister, good afternoon. Welcome to the French Lycée, a Franco-Mexican school at the heart of the Mexican capital where you're visiting. And in fact, we can hear the children in the playground as we speak. I'd like to begin by something that links us, which is that today it's when France 24 in Spanish has moved from 6 to 12 hours broadcasting throughout Latin America. I know you played a key role in that, in developing the channel, and I'd like to hear your views on that.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that France 24 is a very important tool because it provides a vision of news around the world, an objective vision of news, which is independent, it's neutral, it is a French brand. And that's why we wanted to strengthen France 24 around the world, because of its vision of news in a world where many international channels don't have that same ethic. And that's why we wanted France 24 to have a Spanish language channel, because this is very important in Latin America, because there are 500 million Spanish speakers, and because it's important also that this approach to news be shared as widely as possible. And we were together in Colombia for the launch of the Spanish news channel, and it was a great success because the viewer ratings were very high, and now we have doubled the figure, and the shift from 6 to 12 hours a day will make France 24 even more attractive.
Yes, absolutely, especially in a world where fake news play such a prominent role with elections, where there's a lot of disinformation.
And that's why we decided to reinforce the Spanish language channel. It's very important, and it's a great pleasure to be with you here in Mexico City, which is a very important country in Latin America, and also in terms of the ties between France and Mexico, which are very strong, as we can see here.
So it's the second time that you're coming to Mexico, right, as Foreign Minister?
The second time as French Foreign Affairs Minister. I was here 1 year ago. President López Obrador had just been elected, but he had not yet...
Yeah, that was in October last year.
He was not yet in office. I had talks with him, which were preparing what I'm going through now during this visit. He has a very strong determination to transform the country, and on major points, we see very close ties between France's his determination and our wish to accompany transformation in terms of efforts for youth, and in also to help balance the territories. We want to accompany this very inclusive plan for transformation, and also in fighting corruption with major initiatives in Mexico. We know that this is very difficult, but we have very fruitful talks.
I heard that you signed a defense agreement to boost multilateralism with a very powerful neighbor of Mexico and a partner, a champion of unilateralism. How do you plan to carry forward this struggle, as you called it?
I think that historically, we have the same approach to international affairs as Mexico. We feel that law should prevail over confrontation between powers. We think that the way we live together on the planet should be regulated, that each country is worth as much as another, that we should emphasize cooperation rather than confrontation, that there need to be bodies for that, and that given the challenges that lie lie ahead, be it immigration, the digital transformation, in ecological transformation. All these are major challenges, and we need tools to regulate this. And paradoxically, as the challenges around the planet on all of these issues grow, at the very same time, the tools to regulate them seem to be in the process of self-destruction. So we want to be at the forefront, at the vanguard of those who want multilateralism, who do not want to be held hostage to those who seek to emphasize force. We want to be among those who emphasize law, human relations, economic relations in the human adventure, and we're very much on the same wavelength.
Aside from Mexico, there are other Latin American countries part of this process?
Well, the path is open for those who want to join us. We have this initiative called the Alliance for Multilateralism. What we want to see is other countries joining us. Many have made themselves part of this. We have strong ties on this with Germany, with Canada, with Ghana, South Africa. But we need to reinvent multilateralism. And we have spoken about all this with President López Obrador yesterday.
Now, the climate emergency, as it's called, was another focus area of your talks with the President and your counterpart, Marcelo Ebrard. Are there decisions on that?
No, what we wanted to do was to strengthen our cooperation in this field. It already exists, in particular in the Caribbean. On sargassum weed, we have joint initiatives, but we have the same view international. And given the climate challenges where the COP25 in Madrid was unable to deliver solutions, it's in fact a failure, which is due to the fact that we were unable to agree on an implementation of the Paris Agreement regarding the carbon market, how to regulate the carbon market. And we regret that Brazil contributed to the failure. It's a great shame, but we hope that this will change. But this awareness, there needs to be an awareness of this. And the Glasgow COP next year will be decisive in order for us to come to a decision in terms of increasing our ambition.
Turning to another point, you arrived just at a time when the treaty between the US, Mexico, Canada has been approved. How do you view from France this multilateral treaty? Trilateral?
Once neighbouring countries agree on a set of rules, then that's a good step. The risk here is that you have confrontation without rules, and if the key players feel that it was in their interest to agree on that basis, and I see that that is the case because the Mexican Parliament has adopted this, and yesterday the House of Representatives in Washington also adopted it, and Canada will adopt it soon. That means that there is a common will to respect this, and this is a good example of a win-win example of regulation.
And let's turn now to Latin America. And the last time we met in Bogota, as you mentioned earlier, Venezuela was the focus of attention. The crisis in Venezuela continues. Now we have a wave of social unrest and protests from Hong Kong, March of this year, through France, the Yellow Vests, the pensions reform are now in Latin America, in Chile, Colombia, very strong mobilization in Ecuador, and a different case linked to election in Bolivia. What's your view on the situation?
Well, let's not mix everything up. The fact that you have protests on the pension reform in France does not have very much to do with what's going on in Hong Kong or with different forms of protest in Latin America. Let's not mix everything up. Each country has its history and its problems. What I do find with you, like yourself, is that in the past few months there have been protest movements in Latin America against inequality, significant social protest, which unfortunately has sometimes led to confrontation and violence. Since we last met in Colombia, this phenomenon has become more acute in Chile, the situation in Bolivia, Ecuador, on top of the crisis in Venezuela. My feeling is that in each country, what is needed is a political solution based on dialogue, avoiding confrontation and violence. And I felt in Chile that what I saw that the political forces agreed a few days ago on a consultation in order for there to be a referendum on the revision of the constitution, which is good progress. I saw that the Chilean authorities want there to be an inquiry on the violence that has taken place. I think that's healthy. And elsewhere, what I'm seeing is a wish for inclusive transition and electoral transition, and this is key. In other words, for people to be able to give their opinion. And
we only have a few seconds left. As by way of a last question, can we say that there's a certain focus by France on Latin America, on trade also, that's pretty low, and on the political front, and also on the broad outlines of French diplomacy?
Well, this is a continent which is dear to our hearts. We have a long-standing historical presence here, which is very significant. We also have a cultural presence, a presence in terms of values. There's the role of the French Revolution in these countries. We have a key partner at this very moment, which is Mexico, and we want Mexico to be a gateway to Latin America, for Latin America to Europe, because I think the time has come to strengthen the ties between Latin America and Europe. I know that there will be meetings in January of all of the Latin American foreign affairs ministers. This will be discussed, and we want to be partners of Mexico to strengthen their ties with Europe, and want Mexico to be our partner to strengthen our ties with Latin America.
Yeah, 12 minutes is very short. Thanks for joining us on France 24 to all our viewers, and you can catch up with all the news on France24.com.